All right, I think we're live. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Broncos. As
Yet
you can
another
see,
one, unfortunately. Sorry, guys.
yeah, I want to apologize to everyone listening. This is Let's Talk Broncos. Bree Maestas, Joey Richards. Zach Seegers will be joining us in just a little bit. So if you're missing his presence, please hold on tightly. He will be with you in just one moment. But Joey, it's a Victory Monday. Does it feel like a win to you?
I mean, okay, there's certain aspects, Bree, where it does. Like, it's hard for me to be super upset about when the Broncos win. It's one of those things where I feel like all fans should protect themselves and be like, yeah, the Broncos should tank. And then when they win, just be happy they win. That's what I have to say about this is what the Broncos fans should be doing. Protect your mental health. Mental health is important. I think it's very important. Go into the games wanting them to lose. If they win, hey, that's fantastic. That's my new strategy, I think.
Well, Mario Vitanzi was saying on the Fan Cave today that if you're rooting for the team to lose, to tank in any capacity, you're a loser. And I don't believe that, because I think you get to fan however you want to do. If you want this team to lose, so be it. You pay the money to watch, you invest the time to do so. And listen, they're not very good right now.
I totally agree.
You're seeing.
Yeah. Go ahead, Bree. Cook.
Well, you're just seeing a team that's not performing very well. So I think you have to take that into consideration. There's a lot of noise going on behind me. I apologize. But
No, it's all good. I think that it's with here's the thing about it. And I want to have this conversation when Zach comes on because I want to clip it and get a lot of views because it's very controversial. I want to talk about that tanking thing. I think that there's positives to that. Like if the Broncos, I don't understand why everyone's like so far against it. Other than just, hey, I feel good the next day. I feel like that's the biggest reason as to why I want the Broncos to be good for like the next 15 years. And if that is them getting a top 3 pick in the NFL draft, so be it. I'm willing to suffer 1 year if that means that the Broncos are good for the next 10 or at least competitive. I don't have to watch a terrible Broncos team every single season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so you're backed into a corner here. The team is now 1-3 instead of 0-4. Now the Bears are 0-4. A little bit of a tank bowl happening on Sunday. The idea going in was you didn't know what to expect. And the first half of football was a lot of what it used to be. The second half of football, which we're going to get to, we're going to do the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I'm going to go with the good first, and that's going to be the second half performance was a lot different than what we anticipated. Look at Samuel Castro in the chat tonight. What's up, LTB? I'm back from Chicago. It was so fucking stressful watching that game till the end. Holy cow. Samuel, thank you for joining us. And I assume it was very stressful. I believe it was a 17 point deficit that they had to overcome.
Yes. It was really bad. It was doom and gloom on Twitter in that first half. It was doom and gloom. Like, wow, the Broncos are that bad. They are worse than the Bears. And guys, should we just get into the good and bad and ugly real quick?
That was my good. I mean, my good was second half of football. I think we should do goods first. I think we start off with what was positive, because a lot of the time here on Let's Talk Shit About the Broncos, sometimes it's just not that positive. But I want to go in that direction right now. Joey, what did you find was good from Sunday against the Bears, other than Justin Fields looking like a maybe potential Hall of Fame quarterback?
That was. We're gonna get into the ugly. I think my good. I want to say Jaleel McLaughlin was one that was really good. He was a guy who he had 7 carries for 72 yards. That's fantastic, really good. They were doing a lot of creative stuff with him. He had a touchdown on a screenplay. I love that the Broncos had a good screenplay for once in their NFL history, it feels like, since I've been consuming the Broncos. Thank God. Jaleel McLaughlin, he looked really, really good. He looked slippery in open field. He broke a ton of tackles, actually. And he looked fast and electric. A good compliment to what the Broncos do have in Javonte Williams and Samaje Perine. I think, here's my take. On the season, he had the best running performance, I think. I think that he looked the best of any of the running backs for a single game thus far. I don't think he's the best running back on this team, but just as a pure runner, Jaleel McLaughlin was awesome, and I don't think any of the other Broncos backs have been nearly as explosive or exciting as Jaleel McLaughlin was against the Bears.
We're having a breakdown over here in the Let's Talk Broncos community. Carter says trade Javonte. Is that a trade candidate that you think is a potential moving into what the era of the Denver Broncos Sean Payton wants to kind of head towards? And it's not going to make a lot of Broncos country happy. You've got ideas swirling about Justin Simmons, Javonte Williams. Javonte seems crazy to me. So Carter, yes, I think you're crazy. Joey, how would that make you feel?
Hey, I think Javonte is a really good running back. Does it feel like he's still recovering off of that injury? To me, yes. I don't think he's as explosive this year from what I've seen. I just don't know if anyone would trade for him. Cal says, do running backs get traded anymore? And I think that's a fantastic point. We've seen a slew of amazing running backs be available via trade, and it feels like nobody can get a deal done, whether that be Jonathan Taylor, whether that be Derrick Henry, whether that be Austin Eckler. These are all guys that have been available this season, and no one has ponied up and traded for them. If you did trade Javonte, I just worry that it would be pennies on the dollar, and it's like, what's the point? A 6th-round pick or something like that's not going to do it for me. For Javonte Williams, it's just not. So I don't think I would trade Javonte Williams, just because I don't think the offers will be there, quite frankly.
These lovely graphics are up, and I just wanted to let you know that it does block your face a little bit. That wasn't intentional. That's not what I'm going for here. I'm not trying to ice you out of the conversation. But let's be honest. I'm covered right now by Russell Wilson. I think we have to highlight just how good he looked again for another consecutive week. And I know that there's some pitfalls, there's some up and down. Russell Wilson is not the most consistent baller out there. But if you look at, I believe the EPA was at 22, so ranked 5th for efficiency in his quarterbacking. But you know who was 6th, Joey Richards?
Oh.
Baker Mayfield. So let's reel it in a little bit and say Russell Wilson does look improved, and Sean Payton's plan is working exactly as it should be. You're seeing a Russell Wilson who's able to find an open receiver of the very limited amount of targets that he has, and the offense looks pretty good. How do you feel about Russell Wilson's performance on Sunday?
I think he looks really good. I'm excited about Russell Wilson. And it just kind of highlights to me how good Sean Payton is as a head coach. He came in here this season with the idea of, hey, we need to recreate the offense, and it has been exactly the plan. Who remembers the Broncos offense last year or the year before that or the year before that? The Broncos offense has been bad for a really long time, and with minimal moves. I mean, he made a move at right tackle and guard, and then he signed a running back who looks like a 3rd-string running back right now, in Samaje Perine. And now the Broncos look like they have a very competent offense, one that I'm excited about, and one that I think is going to get better through the weeks. Do I think the Broncos are going to have that many false starts game in and game out? No. And that really altered what they were going out there to do this last week. So I'm still very excited about this Broncos offense, and I think it's still going to get better, Bree. I really do. Russell Wilson is still figuring this whole thing out. The Sean Payton and Russell Wilson marriage is still brand new. It's only going to get better. But I want people to make sure that they're giving Sean Payton a ton of credit for that. He's got a ton of crap for how the defense looks, as he should. Then we also have to transfer that same energy to the offense, and he's more than successful right now, I would say.
Do you think it's time for another panic meter assessment just between the two of us? How do you feel about this Broncos team after what you witnessed against Miami in Miami? I'll mention the 70 points just because it's funny to me, but talk to me after the Bears game, because that's not necessarily a formidable opponent where you're trying to find the measuring stick for where this Broncos offense is at. But even the O-line looked a little shaky. The performances from McGlinchey and Bowles wasn't exactly where you'd want to see it, but it did give Russ a little bit of an extended time in the pocket, which seems to serve him well. So do you think the offense as a whole is getting better week to week?
I do. I thought blocking wise, that was their best performance. Now, the false starts is where I want to highlight your comment, Bree, on, hey, it was shaky because they both did get false starts in that game. But I want to say, I think that this Broncos offensive line is a lot better than Twitter wants to make it sound. I will say that. I think this offensive line is the best offensive line the Broncos have had in a really long time. I mean, we can go up and down the Broncos offensive lineman. Scarable is amazing. No. Is he good? Yeah. Ben Powers, is he amazing? No. Is he good? Yeah. I could go up and down this across the entire all their 5, and I would say, yeah, they're starters. They're pretty good players. I couldn't say this in prior years. It's one thing I could not say. When the Broncos were looking for a right tackle, it felt like for a decade, it never felt like I could say that. And this is finally the year where it's like, hey, pretty good. I like
it's okay. It's okay across the board.
Yeah. There's no weak
It's
links.
all right. I mean, I think that's good. How often do you find top tier superstar linemen that last long enough to kind of make that sort of foothold there? So if the Denver Broncos are able to find the talent there and develop the talent there,
you have to draft them, Bree. Yeah, if you
okay, well then talk about drafting that potential.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to. When good offensive linemen hit free agency, everyone wants to talk about how overpaid we paid Ben Powers and Mike McGlinchey this offseason. One thing I want to point out is the good ones are so rare. They're so hard to find. The ones that are actually producing at a high level are so hard to find that when they hit free agency, you're going to overpay. You're overpaying on offensive line. There's just not enough. Every team needs it. The competition is too steep. Supply and demand. That's what it is. So when Mike McGlinchey hits free agency, he might be a top 10 paid right tackle. He might not actually be a top 10 right tackle. Yet, if you want to secure that position, you're going to have to overpay. So the only good way of getting an offensive lineman is really through the draft. That's where you're going to be able to then get that guy and retain them, get them on a lower contract, get them to develop. That's the only way you're getting cheap offensive linemen out here.
All right, that's fair. D-Bronx 1414, friend of the show, says, where's the brick wall behind Bree? Listen, I'm in an undisclosed location. You're just going to have to deal without it for this episode, but it'll be back at some point. Let's move on to the bad, because there's a little bit of it. I think there's still, I'm not going to put the graphic up there because it covers both of our faces, but I did want to talk a little bit about maybe what you saw as an underperformance, specifically in the first half of football, because let's admit that as a Broncos fan watching the second half of that game, a little bit of hope was elicited from that kind of effort that you saw. What did you see that was bad that gives you a little bit of a pause?
I want to just talk about, the bad was just how good Justin Fields looked. I think that I used to be a massive Justin Fields fan up until maybe the beginning of this season. I've always been a Justin Fields believer. Is he a quarterback that should be going into halftime with no incompletions? Is he a quarterback that should be going in there with the stat line of, the guy balled out. His stat line was 28 of 35 for 335 yards, which is the most passing yards he's ever thrown in his career. And then also with 4 touchdowns.
You can't gloss over a career year like that or a career game like that, Joseph. I think you have to really lean in to the idea that a career year for Justin Fields against a Broncos defense is just a little salty for Broncos country after what they sustained against Miami. And there's a little bit of saltiness there also, considering Justin Fields wasn't drafted by the Broncos. Yeah. So it's amazing where we could have gone. In hindsight's probably the right choice, but I don't want to drag that conversation on too long. What I did want to mention, though, is Russell Wilson is still struggling to find that receiver who's going to help him continue to find momentum on the offense. Jerry Jeudy still kind of MIA. And then you see the reaction on social media afterwards, where I don't want to get too much into, but you've got infighting between media and players. Again, is that a byproduct of a frustrating season?
I don't think so for Jerry Jeudy. I think Jerry Jeudy just likes Like, there's a reason why everyone looks into every little thing he says on Twitter. It's because he's good for a what the fuck are you talking about? To a former Broncos player. He's good for a couple of those a year. So
Ew.
yeah. Which,
Just
hey man, I gotta give credit where credit's due. It was what he said was funny, but
we won't get into it.
it sounds like him and Rod Smith cleared it up, which was cool. I don't think him and Philip Lindsay probably will, but hey, I don't think it was anything to do with frustration. I thought it wasn't a great performance for him. He still led the team in receiving yards, which was for 2 weeks in a row now. He's led the team in receiving yards. It's just like he did have a drop, and then there was that one play deep down the field where it didn't look like he really made an attempt on the football. So that was the type of stuff where it was like, okay, Jerry, maybe after that game you don't talk your shit. Maybe you go online, you say those.
You mean 3 receptions for 57 yards doesn't give you.
That's not a bad game now. That's not the worst stat line of all time. Wait, okay? Well, hey, let's talk about your boy Cortland Sutton, right? Because
I didn't say anything. There was no reason to turn that around on me. I wasn't going in that direction.
No, I think
Joey, I'm gonna need you to back the fuck up.
All right, well, damn. I mean, I'm just talking about the Broncos' leading receiver right now. That's all. No, I do want to highlight.
Marvin Mims had 47 yards on 2 receptions.
Yeah, he got most of that in one. It was a big play, though. Big play. Marvin Mims continues to impress.
Is that another good that we can just wrap into the rest of the conversation?
Yes. Marvin Mims needs more touches. He should be one of those guys that you're like, okay, we need to find the way to get the ball in his hands. He just comes in the game and he makes big plays. He's not getting a ton of PT, yet he goes in there and is making massive plays for the Broncos over and over and over again. Sean Payton, he's only drafted like 4 wide receivers, including Marvin Mims, in the top 2 rounds. All of them are successful. So Marvin Mims is just going to be another one of those players, I think. I have no reason to think that Marvin Mims is going to slow down. I just think with more play time, he's going to continue to improve. And honestly, Bree, hey, we were talking about should the Broncos rebuild on yesterday's podcast. Zach and I were. Marvin Mims gives you a really good head start on if you do end up trading a Jerry Jeudy or Cortland Sutton. Gives you a great head start. You at least have somebody in the room that you know can go out there and produce because he's doing it as a rookie. I don't expect it to slow down at all.
I honestly thought it would be a little bit more this week, especially against the Bears. Little could be done to make that happen, but I think the roles and the production are just going to continue to increase for Mims. And Zach and I talked about that on the pod prior. So it's just been weeks and weeks of wanting to see more from Marvin Mims and seeing some really great splashy plays. Jeremy Perea says Mims is him. Have to agree. Jeremy, thank you. We're live right now, so if you want to jump on over to the YouTube, you can talk to Joey and I. I don't know if Zach's ever coming back. So honestly, guess what? I'm going to make the executive decision. We fired Joey last week. I'm going to fire Zach this week. It is just me. It's the Let's Talk Bree show. But you can search over on Let's Talk Broncos. Join the chat. If you still feel so obliged while we're live on here and you want to super chat us your Monday reactions, you can go ahead and do that too. Those are open. And maybe you can suggest a segment that we do in the future. We're not hitting the panic meter just yet, but you'll want to tune in on Wednesday as Joey, Zach, myself, Brandon Perna, Will Keys are going to be doing the Let's Talk Good Broncos show over on both YouTube, so you can catch it on each of those. We're not going anywhere, just doing a little bit of a plug here. You've got Tuesday's episode of Let's Talk Buffs with Mario Vitanzi and Zach Seegers. Wednesday, as I already alluded to, is the Trio Plus 2. Thursday, you'll want to tune into the Thursday show with Joey Richards and Frankie Abbott. Frankie is in the chat over here talking a bunch of shit about a player who I'm not going to name, not even going to highlight it. And then on Friday, it's the 3 of us again because we talk Broncos every single day of the week. Let's talk about the ugly. Joey, what is What is the worst thing that you saw come from the game on Sunday that wasn't the defense? Let's really isolate something that's not the lowest hanging fruit.
Okay, well, I'm going to go even a lower fruit, Brie. I'm sorry. I have to. And it's Vance Joseph. It has to be. It's not the talent, it's the coach. Oh my God. What are we doing out here with this Vance Joseph, man? Okay, here I tweeted this out today. I think Sean Payton's doing a fantastic job at coaching this football team. The area where I think criticism and his biggest critics aren't even bringing it up, really. They blame him for the defense, but they don't go in the detail. And if you go in the detail, you will see that Sean Payton hired a defensive coordinator who isn't running his scheme. This isn't the Vance Joseph defense, guys. This is the defense Sean Payton wants Vance Joseph to run. Now, why would you do that? I have a hard time even understanding why Vance Joseph would take this job. I'll be honest. I mean, if I were a coach and I was in the interview process and someone was like, yeah, you can come coach our defense. The only thing is that, you know, that you like to run, yeah, we're changing all that shit. Get that up out of here. We don't like it. Like, why would you take the job? So it's all confusing to me. But Vance Joseph continues to be the ugly in every single week for me. And until further notice, you can expect Vance Joseph to be the worst on this Monday show for me.
Not only that, but why would you hire somebody and bring them in specifically for that purpose if you're not running their defense, if you're not carrying on? In the conversation, the narrative when Vance Joseph was hired was that he was going to be running the same defense that he ran with the Cardinals, and where he took a kind of under and below par roster and did some pretty neat things with them. Although I'll challenge the school of thought that they're 100% running the Vic Fangio defense because it looks like a hybrid model. So I want to know, why would you hire somebody with that understanding? Not necessarily why would you take the job, because there's two different conversations there. One is a Sean Payton choice and the other is a Vance Joseph choice.
Yeah. So I was talking to, shout out Zambi on Twitter. I was talking to him about this and he made a great point. To me, I think Vance Joseph took the job. And again, this is his point. He brought it to my attention and it just makes the most sense in the world. Hey, I want to be back to being a head coach. It was probably Vance Joseph's idea. And I want to show the league that I can be versatile. I want to show them that I'm not stuck to this one philosophy. I can go coach this other philosophy and be just as successful. Now, massive risk. He's going to a team that he was fired from as a head coach. And a lot of the fan base doesn't like him still from that time. Like, that chip has not left the fan base's shoulder with Vance Joseph. So extremely risky, because to me, Brie, tell me if I'm wrong, if the defense regressed at all, I think Vance Joseph would have been the one everyone was blaming, even if it was just a natural regression.
That we talked about it on Let's Talk Broncos to start the season. We said, watch what happens when the defense takes the natural regression that they're already going to do. I wasn't predicting this bad of a downfall, and that's why I think it has to correct itself mid-season. Like, it'll just naturally get better, especially with I want everyone to understand the implications of Justin Simmons not being out on the field, not just from a talent perspective, but as he quarterbacks the defense. Not having Justin out on the field is already a significant impact to this team.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. That part I do agree with. And then also K'Wan Williams coming back should definitely be big help whenever that's done. And even PJ Locke comes back, he'll be an upgrade over DTY. So there are some players out that will help. It's really confusing as to why this Vance Joseph was hired. The other part about this is, if Vance Joseph took this job to then become the head coach, or a head coach at some point again in the NFL, show that, hey, I'm ready again, give me my second try at this thing. Right now, he's playing himself out of ever getting an NFL coordinator job again. Like, I guess that's part of the risk he took. I don't know if he fully evaluated that, but you can't go into these games where the Broncos are giving up 30 plus to Sam Howell's Commanders, 70 points to the Miami Dolphins team, and then give Justin Fields his best game of his career all consecutively, and then think another team's going to hire you as their defensive coordinator.
Joey, okay, let's take that into consideration. And I don't know why I have to interject with this right now, but I think it's appropriate to do so. Last season, Injuries and sustained blows to the offensive line and the offense as a whole was a steadfast reason as to why the offense was struggling last year. That was brought up many a time.
Yeah.
I think that is also appropriate to mention here just how many injuries on the defense continue to be sustained. I'm going to remove this banner because it's distracting me from what my actual conversation is here. But why is it not being brought up more frequently? Why is it a scheme or system fit? Why do you think that it is not major role players on this team, including a Caden Stearns, who was supposed to step into a pretty decent role within the secondary, would go, well, the secondary isn't playing well. They're all injured. There's not a safety to shake a stick at. So
yeah,
injuries are a big part of this defense not doing well.
It's true, Bree. Where I will give you a little pushback is just like the out of position stuff. It just seems like players don't know what they're supposed to be doing sometimes out there. Like Justin Fields threw to a wide open tight end on a seam route where it felt like, hey, either the linebacker or the safety have to go following up. Both of them covered the running back out of the backfield. Stuff like that, where it's just like, okay, guys are running wide open. Like nobody's covering them. It's clear miscommunications in coverage. It's clear coaching issues. Like that's coaching stuff. Because where, DTY might get beat quite frequently because he is your sixth safety, right? You don't expect him to go out there and be amazing. You expect him to be prepared. And that's something in the Miami game where he wasn't. I thought he looked better this game. But you expect this defense to be prepared and know what they're doing out there, and it just doesn't feel like they do. I'm not sure Vance Joseph has fully grasped this new defense he's running, if I'm being quite honest. I think
we're 4 games in. It's a little early for somebody to grasp an entirely different defense from what you've been running.
Which is why you don't make this higher. Like that's the pushback I'll give Vance Joseph or Sean Payton. Also, like, you know who the other obvious hire was out there who has been in this system for a while? It's Christian Parker. Christian Parker, and I understand Sean Payton doesn't want to give it to a brand new guy that hasn't been a play caller before. That makes complete sense to me. It just doesn't make sense when you hire somebody that is brand new to calling plays for this defense. It was very obvious to me when Vance Joseph said, yeah, Christian Parker's teaching me a lot. It's like, oh, wait, what? What was that? What did you just say? Why? You're the defensive coordinator, right? Why is the DB's coach teaching you a lot? That's something that probably shouldn't be happening right now.
Well, I think there's a little bit of bleed. Like maybe you're really good at assessing draft prospects, and maybe I'm really good at facilitating conversation and driving a program. And then we come together and we have the Let's Talk Broncos pod that just knocks it out of the park. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a Zach Seeger sighting. Basically, have a great show. Missing y'all. Zach, I wish I could say the same. I really do. Good to see
I think new segment alert. There's a punishment if you miss the pod. Thoughts? Can we get opinions on that?
We have a scheduler
the next time, and there needs to be some sort of something. If you guys have an idea of what that is, please let us know on the Let's Talk Broncos Twitter or in the comments after you watch this video or right now. I think that would be fun.
I think that would.
We could do the punishment wheel. I have that at my house.
Are we ready? We need to start putting some slots on that baby and really get it done. While we talk about one of the good things, I do want to talk about some of the bad. Samuel Castro said, the worst thing I saw on Sunday was the missed tackles in the first half and being out of position, leaving guys wide open. Listen, I think Vance Joseph is cutting his team a little bit short by dropping them into short coverage. That's why you see a lot of the time the guys are chasing. But shouldn't that be sewn up a little bit in the pass rush so that you're not leaving your secondary in the dust? Joey, what's the main contributor to why we see some of these guys out of position?
I mean, coaching, I'll say that. But then, like, as far as the tackling goes, it's going to be a lack of talent. Like DTY made a huge hit to stop him. I think short of the sticks to make it a 4th down this last week. That was awesome. But like Drew Sanders, I don't think he's a guy that's supposed to be out there playing right now. I think he's a situational guy. But is he an everyday down linebacker as a rookie? No. He's not. I've said I love Drew Sanders, Bree. You remember this. Coming out of the draft, I was the biggest Drew Sanders guy. You guys will be
He had
pressed to
impressive
find one.
tape. He
Yes.
had impressive tape.
Yes, and you'll be pressed to find a bigger Drew Sanders fan than I. Now, here was my one concern. Okay, you see him struggling to get off blocks sometimes just because when people get their grip strength into him, he can't get off of it. He has a hard time bringing guys down all the time in open field tackling. I think with more play strength, he's going to become a lot better football player. You know, we're the Vach Lombardi. He needs his offseason peanut butter. That's something that he's still looking for. And I still think there's a lot of belief I have in him. I just don't think that he's an every down linebacker at this point in his career. I don't think this defensive line is that great right now. Our safeties right now just aren't very great. Kareem Jackson, you know, this isn't Pro Bowl Kareem Jackson. This isn't the Kareem Jackson we signed from Houston. He's still a contributor. He's still a solid player.
He's still making interceptions. Let's go.
He did have the game-winning interception, and that was awesome. But is he Houston Texans first year with the Broncos, Kareem? He's not. Is he still a contributor?
Joey. If he was playing like Kareem Jackson from the Houston Texans, that iteration of, he'd be getting
defense would be a lot better, probably, Bree.
Well, okay, maybe the defense would be a lot better, but he'd be getting fined hundreds of thousands of dollars, not just $50,000. Let's really consider what we're saying here. We're asking for a completely different Kareem Jackson to be playing this game. But I wanted to point something out because I just had a leaf in my hair that I had to take out of that. That's what you saw me struggling with. Mike 677 said Vance Joseph is the Teddy Bridgewater of defensive coordinators. I've never heard that before. I'm impressed.
I don't approve of the Teddy Bridgewater slander whatsoever. Mike, shout out to you, though. Bree, can I ask you a question?
Sure. What's up?
Are you under the belief that the Broncos should be trying to, or not, I don't think the Broncos, I'm wording this wrong. Are you under the assumption that the Broncos executives and coaches should be eyeing a early draft pick, or do you think that they should be going in trying to win every game? Where do you fall under that?
That's an interesting question because what's the ultimate goal here, do you think, for the ongoing organizational structure of, are they looking to rebuild, or are they going to keep plastering over the top, Joey? Which one facilitates an actual rebuild? What did you and Zach come to a consensus on Sunday's post-game show? Because my thought process here, and I've never been bought into a rebuild before, I always thought that the idea is that you can't change things overnight, and that's kind of a long process. Why would you want to be in for the long haul? But I think now's the time. It's just an unfortunate circumstance. But how do you do that with Russell Wilson's contract? How do you do that with players that you're still trying to develop, that you drafted in the last 3 or 4 years? You're hoping for draft picks. You're hoping for as many draft picks as possible. The highest pick possible doesn't seem to get you there. I don't think Caleb Williams is the answer for this organization.
Okay. So interesting. I like that answer. I don't think Caleb Williams is the answer right away, Bree. But could he be the answer 3 years down the line? Yes. Are we guaranteed that Russell Wilson will be the answers 3 years down the line? That's where I have hesitation. I say probably not. When you look at, he's 34 years old, I believe, right now. He's definitely getting up there in years, and we've already seen a regression a little bit. Whether, we're seeing a really good version of Russell Wilson right now, one that I love to see, but we're talking about him 3 years down the line. We've already seen him lose a little bit of athleticism. He's not superhero dodging everybody in the pocket anymore. He's having to adjust his game, play more on time, stuff like that. So, yeah, I think the Broncos should be going for an earlier draft pick if you can. I really do. I think it's time for the Broncos. You know, there's a lot of positivity, and I love it. I love the positivity right now. It's just they're 1-3, and the win you have is against the Bears. Let's just take an honesty pill right now, and let's really look at the situation. That means that you're probably not a great football team. It probably does. I think by this trade deadline, whether you want to keep Russ or not, you should be trying to sell. You should be trying to accumulate as many draft picks as possible, whether that be Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Justin Simmons. You know, some of these guys that I really like, you just have to cut bait because I don't see the Broncos winning fast with this Russ contract, or whether you cut him because you're going to have to eat that money, right? You're going to need cheap players, good cheap players, and you need to start a rebuild completely. That's where I land right now. I just, it is what it is. And I'm sorry to say, Bree, last point. Before Dion came in and had to build a winning culture, what did he have to do? He had to bring in 80-something new players. Some of these Broncos players, all they've seen is losing. You saw Garrett Bowles even say that after the game. How do you come in here and build a winning culture when you only have had players and you keep running back the same players that have lost over and over again? That's my only take right now.
I'm just gonna highlight Cal's comment here because I want to make a point off of it, and then we'll start to, do all the things. I don't understand why a highly pro-ready QB wouldn't be a very good plan. Because who is he throwing to? Then you start building off of that, right? That's a rebuild. That is a complete rebuild. You're not trying to plug holes. You're not trying to facilitate a path moving forward. Like, I get it. Well, why don't we just do that, right? Because it sounds perfect on paper, and then you draft a Trey Lance who doesn't pan out. You drafted Justin Fields, who doesn't pan out, and then you're the freaking Chicago Bears for how long? So that's why. That's why I think a highly pro-ready Fields is a project. I know Trey Lance is also a project, but who are you actually getting? Okay, Caleb Williams, ready to go, right? How many players out of USC have not panned out?
Yeah, no.
Like, let's talk a little bit about how it doesn't fix everything.
It doesn't fix everything. I will say, though, like, okay, then how do you attain a quarterback? Because the Broncos went out there and put all their chips on the table for a vet and Russell Wilson, and that really hasn't panned out. So if we can't draft one early because we're building a good team and we can't get that early draft pick every year, and then we're also can't trade our picks because for a quarterback because there's good stuff or there's stuff that could happen that's bad when you draft them. How am I supposed to get this quarterback? That's just my take. Like, you're gonna have to take a risk.
Joey, okay, you're going to take a risk? Talk to me right now. I'm not yelling at you. I'm just kind of really elevated at this conversation because let's talk about the current state of NFL quarterbacks in the league right now. It's not 15 or top, 15 or bottom. You've got like 7 quarterbacks who are top tier athletes and are difference makers in the NFL where you can plug them into a team and they're going to make wins happen. 7. I would say maybe 8, right? Okay, so you get one of those guys or you don't, or you have the other. So 32 minus 8, and they're just going to miraculously change the outcome of an NFL. It's not just the quarterback. Quarterback's an important position, but you're not going to tell me that you're just going to pop in a game-changing quarterback and change the way your team fluctuates in this league, especially in the AFC.
Do you want to know even the more truth? Because I agree with you. The more truth, though, even more than that, Bray, is that you're in a division with Pat Mahomes and Justin Herbert. So if you don't get one of those quarterbacks,
who are 2 of the 8,
yeah, but that's the thing. If you don't get one of those quarterbacks, if you don't take one of those risks,
where do you find them, Joey? Where do you find? It's risks. So it's risks. It's risks. It's shuffling through the Baker Mayfields.
Yeah,
it's shuffling through the Gardner Minshew's, and it's finally arriving at like somebody who's not Kirk Cousins, but is Kirk Cousins.
Over here, unfortunately, I'm not a Gardner Minshew guy. Me personally, more of a that feels like running back to Joe Flacco era.
Listen, if you think that this pod is negative, drop it in the chat. If you think we're positive, drop it in the chat. Because guess what? We're having a lot of fun here. I'm just getting argumentative because I can and I like the conversation. But you really have to consider taking swing after swing after swing. You're not trading for a Justin Herbert. You're trading for a Wilson. And you're getting the results that a Wilson gets you. And without the company surrounding Russell Wilson, you're not getting the results that you want because he's not in that top tier of quarterback. He once was, and hopefully he can return to getting better each week. He's getting better each week. He's ranking in the top of efficiency. Like, we are seeing good quarterbacking right now to Russell Wilson. There's still some question marks. There's still some roller coasters. So I think a rebuild becomes a scary conversation. And if Broncos Country is ready, they better buckle up, strap in, because it's going to be a bumpy ride.
This guy says start at center or nose tackle and work your way out. All right.
Okay, wait, that's literally building from front out. So
Jordan Lopez in the chat. Shout out to Jordan.
Shouts out to Jordan Lopez from Broncos Avenue. We're not afraid to shout out our competition over here.
No, I know. I know some are. Let's talk about it.
Let's
Anyways.
talk about it.
They're not even competition. I love those guys.
All right, Joey. Tell me, is there anything else you want to cover from the game on Sunday?
No, just that the Broncos, good W. I'm happy Russ got a win. I think that's good for him because national media has completely disregarded that he's gotten better. And I'm happy that, he got a win and some people are taking notice now. So that's the last thing I got to say.
All right, I'm going to go watch the Seahawks and Giants game because, of course, I am. This is a choice, everybody, watching some good football. But we'll be back. We'll start talking about the Jets game, the long-awaited Jets game that no longer features an Aaron Rodgers. Nathaniel Hackett's shenanigans are catching on in New York. Zach Wilson's having a heck of a game, or is having a heck of a resurgence now that he's the starter. I like the way he performed against Kansas City, and I'm sure we'll talk about that some this week as we get prepped for Jets week. Broncos are back in the Mile High City on Sunday. We've got a full slate of shows for you until then. Guys, we appreciate you. Jordan says there's no competition. Well, of course, that's what the losing team would say. We appreciate you all. And Joey, where can we find all your work?
Hey, they released Broncos Ave released I hate to make, speaking of competition, I hate to make it a competition, but Broncos Ave, they released a funniest moments of their podcast, and the kid was the most clips on there. Anyways, sorry to everybody else. I won that one.
Wow. All right.
Yeah,
We'll go watch Joey's.
JR Drafts. And then just make sure you're liking, subscribing. We got super chats. If you guys want a super chat now, we're doing all the fun live streaming deals. Yeah. Till next time, guys.
All right. Follow me over Brewmaces303. You can listen to my episode of The Fan Cave with Mario Vitanzi. That's over on Spreaker, or you can see it over on my Twitter. I'll be back. Big news. Sorry, forgot to mention it because it's not a big deal or anything. I'll be co-hosting Broncos Country tonight, Tuesday night, 6 to 9 p.m. You can watch me and Nick Ferguson. Not watch, you're going to listen to us on 850 KOA, 94.1 FM. Guys, have a good night, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.